Why is it that the people who promise they want absolute sensitivity, complete openness, and endless compliance so often turn away from the person who actually provides it? It is one of the most painful, silent contradictions of modern relationships. You did everything right. You listened, you bent your own rules, and you stayed up late to resolve conflicts that were never yours to fix. Yet, despite all of that devotion, you watch them slip away, slowly, like sand through your fingers. It feels like bad luck, or perhaps a cruel game. But the truth is far more profound, rooted in ancient evolutionary biology and a deeply buried part of your own mind. By the end of this journey, you will understand exactly why this pattern repeats, and you will discover a quiet, ancient shift that changes how you are perceived forever, one that has nothing to do with games, but everything to do with a part of yourself you were taught to bury. Let us begin with an uncomfortable truth. For generations, society has handed us a script for being a good partner. We were told that to be valued, we had to be completely predictable, endlessly agreeable, and available at a moment's notice. We were taught to smooth over every ripple, to swallow our own preferences, and to avoid conflict at all costs. On paper, it sounds perfectly reasonable. Nobody wants to be around someone who is volatile or selfish. But there is a massive, invisible canyon between being a kind person and being a person with no backbone. And that canyon is exactly where respect and desire go to die. Think about the last time someone treated you with a kindness so constant, so entirely predictable, that it felt like gravity. You did not have to earn it, you did not have to respect it, and you did not even have to acknowledge it. It was simply there. Perhaps it was a colleague who always said yes to extra work, or a friend who never disagreed with a single opinion you voiced. At first, you appreciated the convenience. But slowly, without you ever making a conscious decision, you stopped paying attention. Your mind drifted. The human brain is an ancient biological machine, finely tuned over millions of years to conserve energy. It does not waste resources on what is guaranteed and unchanging. Instead, it directs its focus toward the unresolved, the dynamic, and the strong. A person with no edges, no resistance, and no independent center of gravity stops generating the psychological friction that keeps us awake. Have you ever caught yourself saying yes to something, feeling a small, sharp twist of resentment in your chest, but smiling anyway just to keep the peace? Psychologists have observed this pattern for decades. It is not an issue of bad intentions. It is a biological response. In the landscape of human connection, our survival instincts look for signals of stability. We want to know if the person standing next to us can hold themselves together when the storm hits. We look for a partner who has their own path, their own meaning, and a life that exists independently of our approval. When those signals vanish, when you begin to shape your entire existence around another person's emotional weather, the dynamic shifts. It ceases to be a meeting of two whole individuals. Instead, it begins to feel like a weight, a burden that the other person must carry. To understand where this pattern starts, we must look backward. Most men who find themselves trapped in this cycle of excessive compliance were not born this way. They were trained. Imagine a young boy growing up in a home where love and safety were conditional. Perhaps he learned very early that the only way to avoid chaos or to win approval was to be perfectly behaved, to anticipate every adult's mood, and to silence his own needs before they could cause trouble. That survival strategy was brilliant for a child. It kept him safe. But when that same child grows into a man, he brings that exact same blueprint into his adult lives. He treats his relationships, his career, and his friendships as minefields where one wrong step will lead to abandonment. It is not a character flaw. It is an old, dusty shield that you are still carrying long after the battle has ended. This brings us directly to the work of Carl Jung, one of the most profound explorers of the human mind. Jung spoke extensively about the concept of the shadow. The shadow consists of those parts of our personality that we deem unacceptable, the traits we repress and hide away in the dark basement of our subconscious. For many men who have adopted the identity of the pleaser, this shadow contains vital, powerful elements: firmness, the capacity to stand in opposition, quiet confidence, and the willingness to say no. When you repress these qualities, they do not disappear. They simply curdle. They turn into passive aggression, hidden resentment, and a quiet, simmering anxiety. Integrating your shadow does not mean becoming cold or harsh. It means becoming whole. It means being a man who exists fully in his own right, rather than a shadow waiting to be validated by someone else's glance. Let us explore how this wholeness expresses itself in the physical world, through practical signals that communicate your internal shift without saying a single word. The first of these is eye contact. Holding someone's gaze without nervously darting away is a silent declaration. It tells the other person that you are comfortable in your own skin, that you are fully present, and that you do not fear being seen. Most people look away the moment they feel a flicker of tension. It is an instinctive gesture of submission. When you hold that gaze just a moment longer than comfort demands, not as a cold challenge, but with a calm, relaxed focus, you project a profound internal stillness. In a modern world vibrating with nervous energy, that stillness acts like an anchor. Then comes the weight of silence. We live in a noisy era that fears pauses. We scramble to fill every empty space in a conversation, terrified of what the quiet might reveal. But a man who is comfortable with silence communicates a rare form of confidence. When you are asked a question and you take a deliberate breath, letting a second or two pass before you speak, you send a clear message. Your words have value. You do not speak merely to appease or to react. You speak because you have chosen your words with care. This is not about being distant. It is about removing the frantic rush from your communication. But the most crucial signal of all is your relationship with the word no. This sounds remarkably simple, yet it is where most men stumble. Saying no to a plan that genuinely does not fit your life, declining a request that crosses your boundaries, and expressing a differing opinion without offering a mountain of apologies. Every single time you bend your own values or compromise your time just to avoid a minor moment of friction, you send a quiet, devastating message to the world. You are telling them that your boundaries are soft, that your time is cheap, and that your peace of mind is always up for negotiation. Over time, this erosion of self-respect makes it impossible for others to truly respect you, no matter how generous your actions might appear on the surface. Picture this scene. A man sits at his desk. He has planned a quiet evening to rest, to read, or to work on a personal project that truly matters to him. His phone lights up with a last-minute request. He does not want to go. Every fiber of his mind is asking for rest. Yet, a familiar anxiety rises in his chest, the fear of disappointing, the fear of being seen as difficult. He types a quick, cheerful response, cancels his own plans, and goes. He believes he is showing devotion and kindness. But the other person, consciously or not, registers something else. They register that his time has no keeper. They feel the anxiety behind his immediate availability, and the connection subtly loses its value. If you have made it this far, you are already seeking something deeper than superficial advice. What we are about to discuss next is the pivot point. This is where the intellectual theory meets the physical reality of how you move through the world. Everything before this was preparation. This is where the real integration begins. Our fourth signal lives in the somatic frame, how you actually inhabit your physical body. The body speaks long before the vocal cords have vibrated. Many men, burdened by the subconscious desire to be non-threatening, occupy as little space as possible. They round their shoulders, they hurry their steps, and they adopt postures that silently apologize for their very existence. When you walk with intention, allowing your shoulders to relax and your movements to slow down, you change the room's temperature. A body that is not in a hurry, a body that does not shrink to make others comfortable, projects a grounded authority that no spoken words can replicate. This leads directly to the fifth signal, the ability to remain anchored when the environment becomes chaotic. When a crisis strikes, when tension flares in a room, or when an argument begins, the instinct of the pleaser is to immediately fix it. They scramble to soothe, to apologize, and to quiet the storm because the external tension triggers their own internal panic. But the person who can sit with the discomfort, who remains centered and does not react out of fear, automatically becomes the gravity well of the room. In moments of stress, the human brain instinctively looks for the most stable point of reference. That stability cannot be faked. It is forged by choosing not to let external chaos dictate your internal peace. There is a sixth signal that is almost completely ignored in our modern, hyper-connected culture: your relationship with your own time. A man who replies to every message within seconds, who rearranges his entire week at the first sign of someone else's interest, thinks he is demonstrating care. In truth, he is demonstrating that his life is empty of priority. Time is our only non-renewable resource. How you guard it, or fail to guard it, tells the world exactly how much you value yourself. This is not about playing games or strategically delaying your responses to seem busy. It is about actually having a life that is full, focused, and worthy of your attention, so that you respond when you are free to give your full presence, rather than interrupting your life out of anxiety. Finally, we must look at the seventh signal, the authenticity of your humor and expression. It is a common, quiet tragedy to watch a man laugh at jokes he does not find funny, or nod in agreement with opinions he secretly opposes, simply to keep an interaction smooth. It seems harmless, but it is a slow form of self-betrayal. Over time, the people around you will sense the lack of weight. They will realize they do not actually know who you are because every reaction you offer feels tailored to please them. Laughing only when you are genuinely amused, and holding your ground when you disagree, signals a solid, independent identity. It shows that you do not need to merge with another person to be secure in their presence. Let us pause here. None of these shifts will work if they are adopted as a mask. If you use these signals as a clever strategy to gain approval or to change how others treat you, the gap between what you project and what you actually feel will eventually show. People have an incredibly sensitive radar for performative confidence. What we are discussing is not a role you play. It is a reconciliation with yourself. It is the restoration of your own boundaries, your own voice, and your own life. For a very long time, I made the mistake of confusing kindness with the absence of boundaries. I said yes to every demand, smoothed over every disagreement, and apologized for things I did not do. I believed I was being a good, virtuous person. But inside, I felt an empty, hollow exhaustion. I was living a life designed entirely to avoid bothering anyone, and in doing so, I had completely abandoned myself. I remember a moment, sitting in a meeting, where someone proposed a direction I knew was deeply flawed. Instead of speaking up, I nodded along with the rest of the room. When I walked out of that building, I felt a physical sickness in my stomach, the quiet, heavy realization that I had traded my integrity for temporary comfort. That discomfort was the catalyst that began this entire journey. If you want to step out of this cycle, you must understand that change is a deliberate, three-stage process. The first phase is recognition. You must begin to watch yourself with the cool, objective eye of a scientist. For 1 week, do not try to change anything. Simply notice every time you say yes when you wanted to say no. Notice when you laugh out of habit rather than amusement. Notice when you shrink your posture. Write these moments down. Do not judge yourself. Just gather the data. The second phase is practice in small, low-stakes environments. You do not need to change your entire life tomorrow. Start with a tiny, everyday interaction. The next time you are offered a drink or an invitation you do not want, take a single second of pause before you speak, and then decline calmly. That 1 second of pause is where your personal freedom is born. It is the space where you decide rather than react. The third phase is calibration. True strength is never rigid. It is highly adaptable. It is not about becoming an unyielding wall to everyone you meet. It is about knowing where your boundaries lie and standing by them with absolute calm, while still maintaining the capacity for deep, healthy empathy. We do not set boundaries to push people away. We set them so that we know exactly where we end and where another person begins. Let us look at the science of why this shift is so powerful. Research in social psychology shows that individuals with a secure attachment style do not live without insecurity. Rather, they have learned not to export that insecurity into every interaction. They do not constantly look for clues that they are about to be rejected. They do not treat every silence as an emergency. Because they can tolerate uncertainty, they bring a clean, unburdened energy to their relationships. They free the other person from the exhausting job of constantly having to reassure them. When you depend entirely on another person's validation to feel whole, every conversation becomes a test. The other person can feel that weight, even if they cannot put it into words. They feel that they must walk on eggshells to avoid upsetting your fragile peace. That is not connection. That is a hostage situation. But when you build a stable foundation within yourself, when you have your own projects, your own values, and your own respect, the relationship finally becomes a place of freedom. You can disagree without it becoming a crisis. You can spend time apart without it feeling like an abandonment. The quiet confidence we are speaking of is not loud. It does not need to boast, it does not need to dominate, and it does not need to prove its worth to anyone. It is the quiet presence of a man who knows who he is, who respects his own time, and who is willing to stand by his principles even when it is uncomfortable. This path is not easy. It will require you to face the old, childish fear of not being liked, and to sit with the discomfort of setting a boundary for the very first time. But there is no other way to build a life of genuine integrity. Every time you choose to respect your own boundaries, you are rebuilding the most important relationship you will ever have, the one you have with the man in the mirror. If you have traveled with me to the very end of this video, type, "I made it," in the comments below, and I will personally reply to you. If this perspective helped you today, subscribe to join us, and leave a like to help others find this path. Thank you for your time, and remember to guard your focus.